Welcome everyone. Tonight, the School of Business Administration is really pleased to have you here as part of what we have done usually once a year called the Freedom to Flourish event. And the Freedom to Flourish event is really about trying to identify those kind of market settings which really lead to human flourishing. We believe that free markets are the best way to allow human flourishing in the economic sphere in the world. And this subject is ever more important even today. It's an unusual age when we have at least one political party debating whether we need to have socialism in this country. And yet we have right now sitting watching the sheer wreckage in Venezuela of socialism and where it leads. And likewise, that's contrasted with the evidence over the last 30 years of basically free markets and global free trade leading to 1 billion people being lifted out of extreme poverty through free markets again and free trade. And so some of the advocates of those kinds of systems, well, we really don't mean that kind of socialism. We think we really just want a really expanded welfare state. Unfortunately, if you look at some of the proposals, that's just not true. Many of the proposals these days, the Green New Deal being one of them, are really talking about a significantly larger sphere of state influence to include single monopoly healthcare provision. Generally in economics, we think of monopolies as being harmful. They're not really responsive to consumer desires. And some of this latest discussion with socialism really leads to the worst kind of monopoly. Not only are they monopolies, but they don't even have the input of market prices to understand valuations. So we really do want to focus on the imperative for free markets and so forth, but it's really not just free markets. That's not sufficient. There are legitimate criticisms of the way market outcomes lead, primarily because free markets need to have the right kind of morality behind it. And we believe that Christian ideals and Christian values embedded in free markets is the best result to lead to human flourishing. And we think about that kind of aspect of what would free markets look like with Christians behind it. One of the things we find is that the free market system depends on one crucial economic player, and that's the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the driving force for economic change within a culture and society, and increasingly we're seeing culture being driven by entrepreneurial actions in the marketplace. And that's why we wanted to talk tonight, and we're really pleased to have Mr. Dick Blanc here tonight to talk to us about the Christian imperative for entrepreneurship. Because if we're going to have successful free markets, they're going to have to be grounded by sound biblical values, and the entrepreneurship that is imperative that we have as a country going forward, we really need to raise up a generation of Christian leaders to do that. Dick Blanc was a managing partner at Accenture, and while there, Mr. Blanc had a number of product lines to include healthcare, among others, and a large portfolio where he, for those that don't know, Accenture has, he told me, approximately 480,000 global employees. That's a very large company. He's also had significant involvement with leading Christian organizations, with his involvement with the Leadership Network and training megachurch pastors and others in leadership. And he's also involved with quite a large number of small startup venture firms. And so from that perspective, I think he's uniquely positioned, especially since he is a Cedarville University graduate of and he came back to us now to tell us his story and a little bit about Christian entrepreneurship. So thank you very much, Dick Blanc, for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Dr. Heyman. Everybody hear me? Hey, Cedarville. I did graduate a few years ago. So, yeah, it was a while ago, but it's great to be back. As Dr. Heyman mentioned, we're going to talk about the Christian imperative for entrepreneurship, and it's a big one. Basically, what I want to talk to you all tonight about is creating the future. Creating the future for the cause of Christ. Creating the future for glorifying God with our lives. And I want to talk about the clarity around the point of entrepreneurship. What is it? The French term that goes back in the 1700s, very commonly discussed around our nation. But what is it? So we'll talk about some clarity around that. I want to give you 3 tsunami trends that you need to be aware of. I spent a decent amount of time in the marketplace advising companies as well as advising startups, as Dr. Heyman talked about. And there's 3 tsunami trends that I think are really important for you all to understand tonight in the context of entrepreneurship. I'm going to give you 5 examples of dreamers, of folks who have created startups that are college students, they're Christians, and they're just doing an amazing job very successfully in launching startups while they're at their colleges. So I'll give you a few examples that help to illustrate, and then lastly we're going to make an announcement tonight about something very cool, a new program for you to be able to participate in as students. So the question is, what is entrepreneurship? In my experience is all great impact for the cause of Christ always begins with the entrepreneur. So the question is, what is an entrepreneur? So let's just talk about that for a minute. On this very ground, 5 men, where we're seated right now, were walking through the cornfields that once existed here, sort of loose dirt in between the corn, 132 years ago, if you can believe it. And they had a big dream, a big vision. And the big vision was a place for higher education for Christians to be able to go out into the marketplace and make a difference for the cause of Christ. 132 years ago in the cornfields right here where we're seated. And these 5 men were doing a prayer walk around the fields where we are here today with their friends, with their family. And they stopped in this particular spot, and they said to the group that they were with, our dream is to create a school of higher learning for the cause of Christ, where Christians can come and get higher education. And, you know, they kind of looked at the ground. They sort of drew a line in the dirt in the cornfield, and they looked up and they said, from now on, no corn will ever be planted here again. And this is what entrepreneurs do. They're dreamers. They have a dream. God has created each one of us for a purpose. God created them for a purpose. Their purpose was to do what we see here tonight and create that. They're creators. They're builders. They step into uncertainty, and they forge ahead in uncertainty to do something amazing for the cause of Christ. They're people that go and have the courage to go from what hasn't existed before to what now exists for the first time ever. And that's what they did. Now, as you might imagine, we weren't there, but we can imagine that as they said, we're going to put a school right here for Christians for higher learning in these cornfields. You can imagine the feedback they got in an agrarian economy. What? You're not going to plant corn anymore. Where's the money going to come from? Where are the students going to come from? Where are the professors going to come from? Back then, there's probably nothing but dirt roads here. All those objections. And the only possible response that I can think of from these 5 men as they kind of faced their well-meaning friends and family was to say this: our God will provide. So as you reflect on what we have here at Cedarville University tonight, now 132 years later, did God provide? He absolutely did, and he always will. And this is what entrepreneurs do. Now, just think for a minute from that story, if 132 years ago, these individuals had listened to the feedback that they received and said, you know what, that idea is kind of crazy. It's kind of risky. It's pretty uncertain. We don't know if we can get this outcome. What if they had made that decision? And my point tonight is that throughout my life, I've had many of those cornfield moments, and you will as well. And what I want to point out to you is that as those cornfield moments come, as you're faced with a dream that God has given you, and God gives all of us dreams. He has a plan for all of us from before we were born. As you face those moments, as you face those decisions, what will yours be? What will you decide to do? Will you live out your dream, or will you set your dream down? And that's what entrepreneurs do. They have a dream, they step forward, they're creative, they have courage, and they rely on God to provide the outcome. So let's fast forward to today and future trends that we need to be aware of. There's three what I call tsunami trends that are driving the 21st century marketplace. And these things are key for us as we go to school here at Cedarville University, as we prepare to graduate. First trend, the marketplace. There's a big shift going on in the marketplace. In the marketplace today, all under God, think about in the middle of the marketplace is the marketplace itself. The marketplace made up of just a number of companies, obviously from very large to medium to small. And at the center of that marketplace is a startup economy. Last year alone, 8,600 companies were launched in the marketplace in 3 cities alone in the United States: Mountain View, California, in Silicon Valley, Boston, Massachusetts, and in the New York area. 8,600 companies. 8,600 companies, articles of incorporation, funded, the ideas being turned into reality. That has a powerful impact on the overall marketplace. And one of the key takeaways from that is that it isn't always obvious that amongst those 8,600 companies, Christians founded those companies. Many of them, it seems like, were not. And so what happens in the marketplace today in the 21st century is the startup economy tends to grow, it tends to evolve. Over time, the large companies in the marketplace mature, they begin to decline, and those companies at the center of the marketplace rise and grow to renew the overall marketplace and eventually become the marketplace from that startup economy. And I think the key for us is if the entrepreneurs really create the future for the marketplace. Now, why is the marketplace important? Resources, financial, influence, resources of influence, all emanate from the marketplace. The marketplace funds our churches. The marketplace funds our schools. It funds our nonprofit ministries. It funds our families. And ultimately, it actually funds our government through their taxing authority on the business and personal income. So that center of influence is really critical. The second thing that's going on is the large companies that you will all seek employment from are changing very, very rapidly. And in effect, there's a startup economy that's building inside of large companies. And so at the center of the marketplace is a startup culture, but also in large companies, they've also had to create a startup culture. And the reason is because the speed of change is so fast. If you think about the mobile phone, the cell phone, it took 15 years for the mobile cell phone to get to 50 million users. It's billions today, right? But 15 years in terms of adoption to get to 50 million users. Facebook took 4 years to get to 50 million users. Pokemon Go. How many of you used Pokemon Go ever in your, yeah, many. Pokemon Go, to get to 50 million users, took 19 days. And the point is, that the life cycle of products and services and organizations and companies is shrinking dramatically as things speed up. And as that happens, companies, large companies, to survive, have to hire entrepreneurial style leaders to create the future in startups within their existing companies. My own firm, Accenture, we probably had 50% of our people who were entrepreneurial style leaders. People who could start things, people who could open up new markets with a clean sheet of paper, people who could create new products and services are highly, highly valued in this new economy. So if you take the demand of large existing companies desiring entrepreneurial style leaders, people who can create, build, and grow markets, products, and services in uncertainty, in an unstructured environment, that's a big, big demand driver in even the companies that you will go hire with in the near future. In addition, there is strong demand for entrepreneurial ideas in our economy. People who have a great idea and are willing to found a team. There is a lot of venture capital, private equity dollars that is seeking ideas to invest in because the alternatives are not as great in some of the other places to invest. Last point, and this is just starting to build. I mentioned earlier there's 8,600 companies that were started last year in just the 3 cities alone. The other thing that's starting to happen is for economic and renewal of communities and cities around our nation, we're going from those 3 cities to many cities and regions throughout the country. There's a big shift going on. Here in Dayton, Ohio, $10 million got invested in the community to build an entrepreneurial center in Dayton. In Cincinnati, there's a big move, a developmental plan for the whole city of Cincinnati that's all about creating, funding, launching new companies and startups in Cincinnati. A church, Crossroads Church in Cincinnati, actually launched an entrepreneurship accelerator and is one of the top accelerators for startups in the nation. In Columbus, just down the road, Columbus is one of the top 5 fastest growing entrepreneurial centers in the country. You can see the trend that's going on. So what's the point? Demand is going to substantially increase both in large companies and for ideas for those that want to launch something, launch a new startup for entrepreneurs. People are willing to build, people who are creative, people with ideas, and people who want to build the future. So sometimes when you mention the word entrepreneur, there's a thought that, wow, that sounds risky. I just want a job, right? Entrepreneurs are church planters. Entrepreneurs launch ministries. Entrepreneurs launch startup companies. Entrepreneurs do startups and launch new things in existing companies. And there's fear about that. Let me just make a couple of points. I saw recently that here at Cedarville, last year, our graduating class, 98.3% of our class had jobs within 6 months of leaving Cedarville or took more education to get an even better job. 98.3%. That's an unbelievable statistic. 1.7% would appear to be a risk. I don't think there's even possible to get to 100%. There may even be a couple of students that decide to go to Europe and backpack throughout Europe, right, for a year. And and I've got friends that have done that. I've got a friend named Howard who did that. After leaving college, he went to Europe. He traveled throughout Europe backpacking. He ended up in Italy, and while he's in Italy, he had all the pasta he could stand, so he visits a coffee shop. Howard walks into the coffee shop, and he's like, man, this is amazing. The whole community's here. Everybody seems to know each other. There's work being done, and there's a lot of socializing. Behind the counter, everything's in Italian, but people are so helpful for me, even though I don't speak Italian. He's so enamored with the concept, he goes back to the U.S., and he goes to work post-college in a coffee shop. He takes all those ideas he learned from Italy on his year-long backpacking trip, and he institutes those ideas in his coffee shop. The owner loves them so much that the owner sells him the coffee shop. Okay? 30,000 coffee shops later, Howard, everybody know who I'm talking about? Howard, the founder of Starbucks, the backpacker for a year after college, is now saying he may run for president. So what's the point? What's the point? 98.3% of you are almost guaranteed to get a job come college. And some will launch businesses. And here's really the point. If your risk is that low, is there not an alternative during your 4 years here to perhaps swing for the fences and launch something while you're here at college, at Cedarville? And so really in many ways, risky is the new safe. Let me give you an example, another example, biblical one. You think about Moses, and God approaches him and said, I want you to go rescue the Israelites. I'm going to give you a staff. I want you to go rescue the Israelites. I want you to take those 1 million people to the promised land. Now, think of how risky that was. Joshua, I want you to now take the Israelites across the Jordan River and begin in Jericho to begin taking over the promised land. I want you to just take a step into the water, and I'll take care of the rest. God parts the waters. Think of Gideon. There's 125,000 Midianites that the Israelites are all under control from. Gideon, I want you to take 300 people. I'm going to give you some clay pots. I'm going to give you some torches. And you are going to defeat the 125,000 Midianites. My point is this. Sometimes taking the risk to launch something is really the safe approach. Because when we take the risk as Christians, when we take a risk, God takes care of the risk. And so in effect, we reach the outcome. We reach the safe result. And as Christians, I think that is a huge advantage that we have if we're going to launch a ministry, launch a church plant, launch a startup, or participate in startups in a company. Another thought. So this is Baby Will, by the way. Let me introduce you to Baby Will tonight. Baby Will, I have a family member named Baby Will. This is not exactly his picture. But you may be thinking tonight, does this guy really know that I'm only 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old? Does he? I'll just pick one, 20 years old. Is this really the best time for me to be able to launch something as an entrepreneur for the cause of Christ? Well, think about this. You will never, and I can attest for you from experience, you will never live more cheaply than you are living right now. Now, it doesn't feel that way, but you will never, when you graduate, your costs are going up. It's just just the way it's going to be. So you never live more cheaply. You'll never be surrounded by more like-minded friends than you have right now, who all have differentiated skill sets, experiences, highly talented, professors that want to help, mentors. This is a fabulous environment for launching something new. So the backdrop of a 98.3% chance of getting a great job, perhaps this is something that would be beneficial for you here at Cedarville University. Now let me just talk about 5 individuals, all 18 to 22, who are launching something at their university, all Christians, all very passionate about the cause of Christ. So let's start with Acola. Brittany founded Acola. In college, when she was 20, she went to Uganda on a mission trip. She saw the plight of the women and orphans in Uganda. It's heartbreaking. She got a big idea, a vision, to be able to deal with that and address that. Acola in Ugandan stands for She Works. And she went about to make sure that 500 women, as of today, now are employed in Uganda. And the way she did it is she formed a jewelry company. And if you go to the website, just type in Acola, you'll see what she is in fact marketing through her business. Her business employs 500 Ugandan women. Those Ugandan women, in turn, fund many, many families in Uganda that they are related to. Her products in jewelry are in every Neiman Marcus, a luxury retailer, if you're not familiar with Neiman Marcus. That's the quality of the jewelry that are made. She didn't know how this was going to go. She didn't know how she's going to fund this. She didn't know if this was going to work. She was 20. Last year, Inc. magazine named her one of the top 10 CEOs in the world. I was in Dallas recently, and she was at a pitch competition raising money for Acola. In the span of an hour, she raised $500,000 for her company from the investors and the Christian business people that were there. She Works, Acola, 20-year-old Brittany, making a huge difference for the cause of Christ, launched while she was in college. Be Friendly Now. 2 ladies, one of them 19, 20. I haven't asked their age. I'm just guessing. But in college, 2 ladies founded Acola. Both had been victims of bullying when they were in school. So very passionate. Both Christian ladies founded Be Friendly Now. They're doing an amazing job with this launch. They have worked with Disney with Pixar-level media content to take into the school systems, and it's marketed in kind of a Netflix subscription model approach. So Be Friendly Now gets subscription revenue from families, from students, from the schools. They've got famous athletes, famous singers, famous people that are all part of the media content. It is exceptionally high quality. And they are having a 99 point something or other percent rate of eliminating bullying in school systems. And now they're beginning to scale. I've worked with them and really every company that's here on this list, and they're just doing an exceptional job. Again, same age, same place in life, using their passions, the dream God's given them to change the world, change the future. Micromech. Again, 21-year-old guy in Canada, in college. He's an engineer. Any engineers here? No, we have a lot of business people. Few engineers, awesome. Engineer, I don't know if it's mechanical, electrical, but he's one of the two. He launched Micromech, and basically he's transforming, almost turning upside down, the automotive repair industry. And he's coming up with a device that he gives away for free to people who own cars that connects to their computer in the car. And essentially what he does is, because he now knows, he can tell from the computer output from each car when something needs to be addressed, when something needs to be fixed, he sends a proposal based on that information to the owner, and then he sends a mechanic to their house when the proposal is accepted. Now, how many of you love to go to the dealership to get your car worked on? So he's really come up with something great here, and he's scaling. I also met him recently, and just a phenomenal guy. Everyone I'm talking about so far is no more talented, no brighter, no smarter than anyone in this room. They've taken the step, though. They've taken the step forward with their vision to make all that happen. Mojo, 2 Cedarville alumni, 2017, one an engineer, one a computer science major. I think this is their second company they've launched. They launched a company here. They rented space off campus, an apartment. They launched inside while they're at school, and now they're on their second company. Basically, they're taking all the independent coffee shops that Howard doesn't own, and they've created an app, an iPhone app, that automates the whole and the buyer experience in all the independent coffee shops. Those guys are doing a phenomenal job. They won an award from Google, and they're graduates of one of the top Silicon Valley accelerators out there. Doing a phenomenal job. I met those guys recently, doing great. New Chip. New Chip is also a company I'm working with, Austin, Texas. These guys created their first company when they were 17. This is their second company. They sold that. A lot of money. They're at New Chip. They've raised $3 million in college. $3 million they've raised. They're not worried about school loans. Okay? $3 million they raised to essentially take advantage of regulatory changes that have made entrepreneurship even more popular. Our federal government has, with the Employment Act, with the tax code, made entrepreneurship just that much more attractive. New Chip is creating essentially a NASDAQ, an iPhone app, an exchange for investing in as little as $50 to $100 in startups. And they've also created an accelerator. So these 5 companies, all started by Christians, all started in their early 20s, all funded, all creating impact, all creating change, dramatic change for the cause of Christ. Just want to give you those examples. Everyone in here can do the same thing. So tonight we just want to announce, Dr. Heyman and I want to announce something new, a new program that will help those of you that are interested do the same. So tonight we announce the Cedarville University Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program. Recently we received approval from administration to launch this. It's been about a year in the planning. We've had alumni involved, we've had our business council involved, we've had our professors involved. Just had a dinner before coming over here with a number of our professors across our schools, and it's a cool program. We've gone out and talked to Stanford, we've talked with other universities that have similar programs, and we've kind of looked at what are the best practices for doing this, and we've incorporated this in a program for each of you here at Cedarville University. Essentially, you get college credit for launching something, whether it's a company, a church plant, a ministry. You get college credit for launching something. And whether it's success or whether it doesn't work out, the learning experience from having that entrepreneurship learning here while you're at Cedarville, I think will pay off big dividends as you have your first interview. It's industry learning you can't get just in a normal classroom. It's learning by doing. So we're creating that situation. There's potential for a minor in entrepreneurship that can be added to any major in any school on campus. So it's kind of a horizontal, anchored in the business school. You don't necessarily have to take the minor. You can pick and choose classes as they help you. But the point is, we want to help you get entrepreneurship experience, learning by doing, in that kind of environment. We have businesses that have sponsored internships for the program that will sponsor internships on campus and projects as part of the entrepreneurship curriculum. Two of the ones I mentioned tonight are in that. Be Friendly, the two ladies I talked about that are eradicating bullying, and the other one is Mojo Coffee, the Cedarville graduates, 2017 graduates. Both of them are going to provide us projects for this fall and spring to work with in our classes. We're going to be hosting pitch competitions. Has anyone ever been to a pitch competition before? Start up. Good, good. A few of you. Perfect. Pitch competitions, they are a blast. We're going to host pitch competitions for students. We may have some of our alumni also pitching ideas. We're going to bring individuals to the campus from Silicon Valley, from Dallas, from the broader national private equity landscape, the broader venture capital landscape, venture attorneys, and we're going to make them judges, but also providers of capital to invest in your startups. Okay? I've already been on a call with some of them, and they're excited about the potential of hosting a pitch competition here at Cedarville University and creating, in effect, Cedarville University as a hub in Ohio for faith-based startups. So that's already underway. We're also announcing tonight a new Cedarville role or position. It's going to be called the Entrepreneur in Residence. So we have very, very experienced individuals who are serial entrepreneurs, who are venture capitalists, who are venture attorneys, who lead private equity companies. They're going to take residency on campus. They're going to provide office hours for our students to be able to get coaching and mentoring for those things that you wish to start. And they're also going to participate with our professors in the classroom environment to give you additional coaching and mentorship. This is the kind of program, if you're going to launch something, that de-risk and frankly capitalizes the ideas that you have, the dreams that you have. The point being is the time is now. If you have any interest at all in being an entrepreneur, testing your entrepreneurship skills, learning by doing, potentially launching something at Cedarville that creates a job for you and a job for your friends here at Cedarville that you launch even beyond Cedarville, this is the time. This is the program. So how do we get started? If you hold up your iPhone, if you have an iPhone, cell phone, if you hold up your phone with the camera, and you don't necessarily take a picture, you just hold it up, you should get a pop-up near the top of the screen. All right, everybody try it. Give me a sense if that's happening for you. You get it? So you get a pop-up. You go to, it takes you to a website. So we're going totally digital here tonight, guys. So, and this is the way you can opt into the community. You're not registering for anything. You're just opting into the entrepreneurship community here at Cedarville. This just gives us a little bit of information on you. There's also a box, as you don't see it on the screen here, but a box. We're going to have a luncheon tomorrow. Chick-fil-A is going to cater in for us. If you want to participate at luncheon, you got more questions, you just want to meet more people, talk in a little more informal way, 11:30 to 1:30 tomorrow. Just click that box, and that tells us you're coming because we won't have enough food. So not going to cost anything. We're going to have it, I think, over at 104 Milner. If the weather's great, we might even move outside, have a little bit of a picnic. But it's just real informal. Just kind of meet a community, ask questions, maybe share some ideas with others. So this is the, everybody get it? Everybody got this? It worked okay for them? Perfect. awesome. And you'll come to this. Now, I think it also sends you an email, and you sort of have to subscribe. That's just kind of the MailChimp process. If you do that, you'll be, as we release more information about the program, you'll get more about it, but also you get some Chick-fil-A tomorrow. Okay, I think we're ready for a few questions.
Sure, come on back over here and sit down. We'll take questions. Students, if you have questions for Mr. Blanc, there's a microphone right here to ask. And I'll start off, use the moderator's privilege to ask the first question. Mr. Blanc, you talked about kind of de-risking. One of the things you've also talked privately to me is kind of the importance of failure, and that seems counterintuitive. Can you talk a little bit more about what failure means and why that's not necessarily a bad thing?
Well, so let me talk about it. So in the classroom environment, what's failure? It's a low score, an F. That's failure, okay? There's kind of a point system. There's a classroom answer. In the startup process, it's very different. I would describe it like driving a car in a city that you're unfamiliar with. You don't have GPS. The satellites have all blown up. You don't have a map. So you've got to try to find a highway in an unfamiliar city. This is how the startup process works, lean startup process. So the whole process is fail often, fail fast, and fail cheaply. That's different than a classroom environment. And typical startup company pivots 4 times before they find product market, service market fit so they can scale. Are those 4 pivots failure? No. So as you're driving through the unfamiliar city, you just start out in the direction you think is best. That doesn't work out. You pivot, you turn. You drive some more. That didn't work out. You turn again, you drive some more. On average, by the 4th pivot, you found product and market fit. Those aren't failures. If there's any failure at all in starting or launching a new enterprise or company or ministry, it's running out of fuel in your car before you've made all the pivots you need to find scale or to find the highway to go scale your business, okay? So it's a different way of looking at failure.
Thank you. And the way I've heard it described is you're never going to be a loser. You're either going to win or you're going to learn, and you're going to be better and ready to go to the next step. We have a question here.
Good evening. So you mentioned that we will be having a whole bunch of people coming over to be judges for these contests, in essence, for bidding for these type of things. So what type of business would they be looking for, or is it like open to anything? Could it be like trying to start up a camp, or maybe a app or something like that? So what type of things are they willing to work with?
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for asking it. So for a pitch competition, we've got people who are impact investors, Christian impact investors that normally participate in a pitch competition. So what they're looking for is something that advances the cause of Christ, but it also has a profit motive, okay? Because otherwise it's not investable. So they're looking for investable enterprises. I mean, look at Lyft and Uber are IPOing, right? They're going public. I think Lyft had a $2.2 billion revenue stream last year, lost $1 billion. So in the startup economy, the accounting, the economics are a little different. And it depends on the company, obviously, right, and its potential in the future. For somebody, so the pitch competition is for really a startup company, has a profit motive, wants to advance the cause of Christ. Christian impact investors come in and they invest in your company, okay? For those who want to launch a ministry or other things, we'll have to have a different kind of event for that. And we're going to sort that out. It may be alongside the same day, right? An event, because we want to spur both. But what I was talking about earlier involves a profit motive, but it also involves impact for the cause of Christ. And these folks that I'm bringing in are highly motivated by impacting the world through ideas Christians have in the marketplace, because they know the influence and resources that flow to churches, to ministries, to everything comes from that center. So for those of you who want to launch ministries and other kinds of things that aren't necessarily profit motive, we're going to probably have to come up with a different sort of pitch competition, if you will, and we'll find the different swim lanes for those to make it work for everybody. But we're going to start out with the for-profit kind of companies. Hope that answers your question. Thank you. Great question.
While we're waiting for the next question, I don't think I was perfectly clear, and whether it came out. If you're not clear, Mr. Blanc has agreed to lead and be the director of this entrepreneurship program, this accelerator. And in addition to that, we also have Kyle Peterson, who's going to be the deputy director, a Cedarville grad, an entrepreneur who has just recently sold his business and has some bandwidth to come help us out.
We're going to make this awesome for you guys. I wish I could let you sit in on some of the conversations I'm having with our alumni and with just friends of the school. They are so excited about this. They're hoping that you all will rally to that cause, because they have deep passion for this. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Blanc, for coming and talking to us tonight. Could you talk briefly about the importance of networking in the startup economy?
Yeah, good question. So in the startup economy, there's two main, let's call it an ecosystem. Everybody familiar with the ecosystem concept? So in the ecosystem, to me, in the startup economy, though, at the center of there's two main roles. There's the founder and the founding team, right, that had the idea. They own it. They own the idea. They own the company. And again, I'm talking about a startup now, not necessarily a ministry. But so that's one key cog in the system. The other one is the investors, because often it takes resources to make all those turns and pivots I talked about to eventually find the best product market fit. So if you had those two, you've got a market. Now, there's a lot of other interested people. There's our university, our professors. There are attorneys, venture attorneys, that can be super helpful as you put your articles of agreement together and form your new company and form the agreements with key employees. There are people that understand capital formation. Okay, and I don't want to get overwhelmed with a lot of this, but the people who understand capital formation, many of those will be our entrepreneurs in residence who can help you with that. Both Kyle and I have a lot of experience in this area. So there's more people, but the two that matter are, in your case, the student founders and their teams, the founding teams for the idea, and the capital markets, which in this case are venture capital, private equity foundations, then angel investors. Angel investors are just private citizens who fund your startup with significant amounts of dollars. And then with the company I'm working with, New Chip, there's also crowdfunding. Does that help?
I would just want to add on to that. We plan on having an extensive, entrepreneurship will be part of it, but we want to have an extensive generation of our own internal Cedarville ecosystem. And there's a reason, for instance, why we really tried to push this to students beyond the business school right now. We're gonna go beyond the business school. We're gonna go beyond students to our alumni. You should stand by in the fall. You're gonna see some increased interaction across many dimensions beyond entrepreneurship to increase the stakeholders that can come in and be some of those network connections that you're looking for as you come up with your ideas. Other questions?
Everybody got it? More questions?
Okay, well then here's the deal. If you signed up for the QR code and you signed up for lunch, you can come tomorrow. We deliberately scaled it. It's only 2 hours, but it spans 3 different lunch hour periods. So hopefully you have one of those free to come share your ideas with Mr. Blanc about what your dream is and how it might be a fit. And then he'll be obviously available for questions then. And he'll be available as well as Kyle for a few minutes after this session. We thank you for coming out tonight and look forward to where this might take each of you as you proceed forward with your own dreams and visions. So thank you very much. And you are dismissed unless you have questions for Mr. Blanc. We'll be down front.